want to take you to Mark real quick and what Jesus said in Mark chapter 13. He said, concerning the day or the hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven. Jesus is talking about the rapture right here. This is reminiscent of the Galilean wedding process where the son would go home, and after the betrothal was complete, he would go home and he would get the house in order, his house in order to receive the bride to himself. And when the father determined that everything was properly prepared, that everything was ready, the father would tell the son to go get the bride and that the wedding would begin. And so Jesus is using this image to share about how the return of Jesus would be to receive the church back to himself. We call that the rapture. But he says, Jesus goes on to say, be on guard. Who's he talking to? Disciples, the church. And listen, look at this word. We're going to see this again here in a second. Keep awake. What does that mean? We don't get lazy. We don't get slumbering. We don't get complacent with what we're doing. As a church, we stay awake. We stay aware. We're praying. We're fasting. We're earnestly working in the world to be the light into the world. You can't be a light if we have as Jesus says, you put the bushel basket over the lamp. You have to keep your lampstands. We have to be like the 5 wise girls who were waiting and watching for the return of the bridegroom. Because he says, why? For you do not know when the time will come. If you hear some YouTube prophet trying to make some argument that Jesus is going to be coming back on such and such a date, just click on to the next video or find something else to watch, because right then you know he's not listening to Scripture. He's not following even the very counsel of the Lord. I think it goes on to say, it is like a man going on a journey. When he leaves home, he puts his servants in charge. Who's he talking about? Us, the church. We're the servants in charge. We've been given. Friends, we've been given a great charge, have we not? We need to bear that seriously. We need to stand firm in that strongly. We need to be taking what God has put over us seriously. And you know, as far as, I've said this before, as far as teachers are concerned, as far as pastors and teachers, the Bible says that we are given a higher account. We are judged more strictly for our work that we labor. He says he puts his servants in charge, each with his work, and commands the doorkeeper to stay awake. Oh, there's that word again, stay awake. Verse 35, therefore, a third time, stay awake. When you see in the Bible something repeated several times, that's a hint that we're supposed to do something, that might be important. I remember when I was in the academy, the police academy, and they would be trying to teach some of us things about law and stuff like that. And when the instructor was up there and writing something, and he stomped his foot, that meant we would take extra note, because that was probably going to appear on a test sometime. This is Jesus stomping on his foot. Stay awake. Third time, for you do not know when the master of the house will come, in the evening or at midnight, or when the rooster crows in the morning, lest he come suddenly and find you asleep. And what I say to you, I say to all. Stay awake, church. Do we need something more to point us to the fact that we cannot use this time to be slumbering? We cannot use this time just to kind of skate along, que sera, sera, whatever it will be, will be. We're the church. We're just going to sit in our happy pews and just pretend like we're doing the right thing until Jesus comes. No, we have to stay awake. Likewise, Paul says, so then let us not sleep as others, but let us keep awake and be sober. What Paul is saying is that we need to take seriously what we're doing, being sober. He's not talking about alcohol use, although we need to be mindful of that. But what he is saying is be sober, as in be mindful about what you're doing. Don't take things flippantly. And then, of course, we see again, stay awake. Now, Friends, if you don't know what happened, let me just kind of update you, and then I'll give you my opinion on the whole thing, okay? This week, an AI-generated image of the president, Donald Trump. For people that are looking at this, I would agree he is resembling Christ, healing a man, and it's stirred a lot of controversy. Rightly so. Let's be clear. I'm not talking about politics here, even if I was. But this is about reverence. No man, no leader, no president gets to step into the imagery that belongs to Christ. Whether it was intended to be satire or symbolism, it was inappropriate, and it be called out as such, and it raised a lot of concern and backlash among religious leaders. And it should. It's inexcusable. It's blasphemy. I'll call it what it is. But the deeper issue is not the one image. It's how easily people are manipulated by what they see. We just read in Mark 13, Matthew 24:4, a world that is dominated by AI, deepfakes, and viral content, discernment is no longer optional. Jesus said, if anyone says to you, look, here is the Christ, or look, there he is, do not believe it. For false Christs and prophets will arise and perform signs and wonders and lead astray, even if possible, the elect. Now let's be honest about something else. There's deeper issues because there are spiritual voices influencing the presidential leadership that matter, because President Trump has consistently surrounded himself, God bless you, with Paula White. She's a woman who has repeatedly demonstrated false teaching. She's demonstrated false prophecy, false prophetic claims, and Scripture is very clear on this. We are commanded to test the spirits and reject false teachers, flat out. So, at the same time, research shows that up to 60% of the viral content surrounding global conflict is being driven by foreign actors. Now, the president said this went up on the president's channel, and then he since took it down. And then there was, this was actually being depicted as a doctor. I've never seen a doctor come into my room wearing a white robe and a red sash. And then he said, I was being like the Pope. Doesn't look like anything the Pope's ever worn that I've seen. And then it wasn't meant to be a Messiah figure or something like that. Well, he's got glowing hands and a sort of a halo around his head, and then some kind of weird beings floating over him. There's a lady to his right that's sitting there praying. And this guy that's laying in a bed, and he's got one of his glowing hands on his forehead. He's clearly portraying himself as something divine. Okay? So let's stop trying to talk around this. And let me say this also. You can be someone that says, I voted for President Trump, I supported President Trump, and I disagree with this. That's okay. Okay? We've gotten into this trap of there has to be a binary thing, right? And you can say, I disagree with this, and I think it's wrong, and I'm going to call it for blasphemy, and I'm going to say that that's not good with me, that's not cool. And that's good. That's okay. Or you can be someone that says, you know what, I never liked the guy, and this just reinforces my feelings. That's okay too. Or you can say, I don't care. But what you can't say is that this was something innocent. And this false prophetess, Paula White, has spoken to him, said to him, it's been openly proclaimed that she says, you are like Jesus, Donald Trump. Oh, they treat him like he's a Messiah figure. Friends, that's dangerous. That's not being awake. That's not being discernment. It goes on both sides of the aisle, whether right or left. We are to use discernment. So yes, shame on him. I deeply condemn it, obviously. I don't see how anybody can give this any kind of nod. Well, that's okay. Yeah, I saw people say, it's just satire. No, it's not satire. Social media isn't just a platform, it's a battlefield. And you're not just scrolling, you're being shaped. And so we have to use discernment. You have to watch. Don't let this fuel your theology. Let it get you back into this book. Let it get you settled into the Word. Now, speaking of social media and all this deception, we are watching the conditioning for delusion. Thessalonians, Paul wrote, God's going to send a strong delusion so that they may believe what is false. The strong delusion isn't coming. It's here, friends. But many will miss this. The world must first be conditioned to accept it. And, may I emphasize, that includes within the church. The Antichrist, listen, the Antichrist isn't going to introduce deception. He's going to capitalize on it. You understand this? He's going to step into the world that's already addicted to it. We're watching the conditioning that's happening in real time. Truth is no longer objective. It's curated, manipulated, and weaponized. And for those who refuse to love the truth, will be given over to believe the lie. In Germany, Christian YouTubers are now under criminal investigation for criticizing Islam. Listen to that. Let me say that again. German YouTubers are under criminal investigation for criticizing Islam and addressing the rising anti-Semitism. They are facing prison time under what's called the blasphemy laws. Let that sink in for a moment. In the modern West, you can openly mock Jesus, but speak critically about other beliefs and you may face persecution. And this is what Jesus said in John 15. That's not tolerance, it's selective suppression of the truth. I mean, probably the criticism they were offering about Islam were very true. Every place that Islam has infiltrated, the living conditions have greatly plummeted. Freedoms are taken away. But here's what's happening. As governments are regulating speech, the line between truth and hate speech is being drawn in ways directly challenging the gospel himself. Did you see that Gavin Newsom in California is saying he is going to introduce legislation that will prosecute men like the guy that went around with the YouTube videos exposing the fraud that was happening in California? What's the guy's name? Nick Shirley. So he went into California and started exposing all the false things that were happening with hospice houses and the millions of dollars that were being, and now Gavin Newsom saying, you know what, we can't have that. So we're going to criminalize it. That's how it starts. How does it end? Well, they're building something massive, my friends. Massive AI infrastructure is being built. Data centers consuming more power than entire regions. Here's what's happening. In Texas, they are building a massive amount of data centers. It's going to use twice the amount of power than all the homes in Texas combined in a single year. That's a lot of power. Have you been to Dallas-Fort Worth area? It's pretty big. Can you imagine? This is the kind of data. In Switzerland, they are working on developing underground data centers that are going to help heat homes because the amount of heat that these things are generating is so big. Radiologists are being replaced. Hospitals are starting to use artificial intelligence to read your radiographs, your ultrasounds or your CT scans or your MRIs or your X-rays. Now leadership is being replaced digitally. If you work for Meta, which is the parent company of the social media that I just warned you about, Facebook, if you need to ask Mark Zuckerberg a question, you don't call Mark Zuckerberg on the phone, you go to the AI console, and the AI Mark Zuckerberg will tell you what the answer is going to be. When trust moves from humans to machine, authority follows, and that's what we're going to see happen in Revelation 13. For 2,000 years, we wondered. I mean, I remember being a kid and studying Revelation, and like, how is this going to take place? This Mark and controlling the economy and global worship, and we were trying to figure out how this was going to happen. Well, now we know, don't we? System that'll control buying, selling, allegiance, and even worship. Today, for the first time in history, infrastructure exists, the technology exists, and perhaps most importantly, the mindset exists. This system will not feel oppressive at first. It's going to feel helpful, efficient, but it's not clippy, the little paper clip on your Microsoft Word program anymore. This is something that is going to tell you how to think. And those who refuse to comply will one day face the beast system's backlash. At the same time all this is happening, it was just reported by the U.S. government that America's birth rate has dropped to historic lows. You know what the cause is? Abortion. Gen Zers are having less children, but the main cause of the decline you see is from abortion. Millions of children are aborted every year, and fewer are being born, and society celebrates it as progress. Scripture is clear, though. Children are a heritage from the Lord. This is not just a demographic, friends. This is a moral issue. The long-term consequences will not be just economic. They will be spiritual. So the question is, back to Matthew 13, are you awake tonight? Jesus didn't give us prophecy to scare us. He gave it to us to wake us up. He gave it to us to look and say, hey, the Lord spoke about this, and it's happening. The question is not whether these things are happening. The question is whether we, the church, will be awake. So stay awake, stay anchored in the Word, and most of all, stay ready because He's coming soon.